It was late December, the kind of winter evening where the air feels heavy and every sound seems sharper in the silence. I was back at my parents' house, a creaky old place at the edge of a quiet town. It wasn't spooky, at least not at first glance. Just a typical two-story house with faded wallpaper and floors that groaned under your weight. The kind of place that felt oddly comforting, like it had seen too many winters to bother hiding its flaws. I hadn't been home in years, not since I left for college, but when Dad had his surgery, Mom begged me to stay for a few days, just until things settled down, she said. So there I was, unpacking my suitcase in my childhood bedroom. Everything felt the same, and yet off. The hallway outside my room stretched into the dim glow of a single light bulb. It flickered sometimes, but that wasn't new. That hallway always felt darker than the rest of the house, like it swallowed sound. I used to joke as a kid that monsters lived in the shadows there. Funny, right? But that night, standing at the doorway, I didn't feel like laughing. That first night was uneventful. Or at least I convinced myself it was. The house creaked as it always did, settling into the cold night air. I chalked it all up to nostalgia and old pipes. But it was the second night when things took a turn. I was lying in bed, scrolling through my phone, the way you do when you're trying to keep your mind from wandering. The hallway light was on. Mom always left it on, just in case Dad needed to get up in the middle of the night. From where I lay, I could see the faint strip of light under my door. It flickered every now and then, but I didn't think much of it. Across the hallway from me, a small figure moved from room to room. Our servant stopped by, inflicted me with furves, until I heard it. A soft shuffle, like feet dragging against the wooden floor. It wasn't loud, but it was deliberate, slow, steady. I froze, straining my ears. Maybe it's Dad, I thought. But then I remembered. Mom had told me he wouldn't be walking for at least a week after the surgery. "Mom?" I called out softly. No answer. I got up and cracked open my door, peeking into the hallway. The light bulb was flickering again, casting jittery shadows on the walls. But there was nothing there. The hallway was empty, stretching into silence. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. You know that feeling, don't you? When the hair on the back of your neck stands up, and your chest feels tight, like the air has turned heavier. That's what it felt like. I stared at the two weird decks above me, looking for anything moving amidst the blackness. I shook it off, muttering to myself about how tired I was, and closed the door. But as I climbed back into bed, I swore I heard it again. That same slow, dragging sound. Closer this time. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, probably just the house settling, I told myself, but deep down, I knew better. Something wasn't right. Something was there. The next few nights were worse. At first, I tried to convince myself I was just imagining things, but deep down, I knew something had changed. The house felt different. It started with the lights. The hallway light, the one outside my door, would flicker on and off at odd intervals. It wasn't a slow flicker. No, this was fast, sharp, like a strobe light. I'd get up, check the bulb, twist it a little, and it would stop. But the second I climbed back into bed, it would start again. Then there were the sounds. The dragging noise, like feet dragging across the floor, became more frequent. It wasn't just in the night anymore. Sometimes it was in the early morning, just before dawn. Other times, I'd hear it when I was downstairs, making a cup of coffee, as if whatever was there was following me through the house. Silent. And the shadows, I started noticing them more. They didn't just shift in the corner of my eye anymore. They moved. A figure, tall and thin, seemed to stretch along the walls, only to disappear when I turned to face it. At first, I thought it was just the odd way the light was casting. But that wasn't it. The shadows weren't right. They didn't belong. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I stood in the middle of the hallway, staring down the empty stretch, my heart pounding. And that's when I heard it. A whisper. Soft, barely audible, but unmistakable. "Come closer." I froze. My blood ran cold. Was I hearing things? Or had someone, been watching me all along? By the fifth night, I couldn't ignore it any longer. The whispers had grown louder, more distinct. The shadows, they didn't just flicker in the corners of my vision anymore. They stood, waiting, watching. I knew I couldn't keep pretending it was all in my head. It was just past midnight when I finally stood up, heart hammering in my chest. I had to see it. I had to know what was in that hallway. I opened my door slowly, making sure not to make a sound. The hallway light flickered above me, casting long, distorted shadows across the walls. I stepped into the hallway, my feet feeling heavier with each step, as though the air itself was thickening around me. I felt it before I saw it. The weight in the air, the oppressive silence that followed me as I moved further down the hall, and then, just as I reached the staircase, I saw it. At the far end of the hallway, near the old grandfather clock, there was a figure. Tall, dark, and utterly still. Its form was barely human, like a shadow pulled too tight over a frame that didn't belong. It was watching me, its shape undulating with the flickering light. My breath caught in my throat as the figure